Excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to our panel, Financing Your Business in Africa. My name is Bernhard and I am within the Austrian Federal Economic Chamber, responsible for promoting export financing within our Austrian business landscape, as well as taking care of our cooperations with the international financial institutions. Before getting started, I will briefly comment on our timing. We'll have approximately 30 minutes of panel discussion with our honorable guests, which are coming right now. And this will be followed by 5 minutes of Q&A. And please, come on. My honorable guests. Kathrin, thank you. Please get a seat. Yeah, great. I have the pleasure to introduce today's panelists in alphabetical order. For Colle, these premises are quite well known because he worked as a trade commissioner for 25 years for Advantage Austria. Later on, he moved over to Austria's export credit agency, OeKB, where he, for 15 years now, supports Austrian companies in all regards of export financing and risk covering services, currently in the role of a senior advisor. And to get a kind of a private glimpse, for Karl, I think since his post in Kinshasa in the 1990s, the African continent always played an important role to him. And it's with great pleasure that I may welcome today Kathrin Eich, Managing Director and Global Head of Structured Finance and Trade Finance within the Commerzbank AG. Kathrin worked for almost 30 years now in export financing and therefore has a really profound knowledge of the business conditions of the various African markets. And Markus Maierhofer, CEO of FIMA Industries, Austrian company operating in the field of waste management. And after almost 15 years of corporate career for the waste machine builder Comtech, he founded FIMA Industries and is completely focusing on the African continent. And apart from his business perspective on Africa, he also invests himself personally by currently co-funding a school project in Ghana. Well, and now let's get the panel discussion started. I have the first question to you, Kathrin. So what's for you the speciality about Africa, and why is Africa of importance to you? And furthermore, what are the trends and which regions and sectors seem promising to you?
Yeah, many thanks for being here. It's really an honor for us as Commerzbank to be represented and to see so many, let's say, interested people in Africa. For Commerzbank, Africa is a continent which we like very much. We have 7 offices across the continent, reaching from Cairo, Egypt, Morocco, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, South Africa, and Angola. So I think it's a bit like feeling at home. And in many of these countries, we are there for several decades. And this is, let's say, the kind of trust and experience we also try then to convey to our clients. Because I think, and we heard that several times this morning already, being on the ground, being connected, having an idea of the markets, it's so important because Africa is not a country, it's a huge continent, it's a very diverse market, very diverse economies, very diverse, let's say, political systems. And this is what we try then to also bring to our customers, that we feel like we are on the ground, we're getting a glimpse of the market, we are connected. I think I dare to say we have a correspondent banking relationship to all of the major banks in Africa. This is also what we then try to pass on to our clients. We facilitate the trade operations because we have those correspondent banking relationships. And also we try to support our clients in long-term export finance. And I think this is something we still will talk about. Trends, sectors you mentioned, we have financed recently drinking water projects, school projects, energy projects, but also transportation, but also machinery equipment. So I think there's everything for everyone.
Great. Thank you, Kathrin, for your insights. Karl, how do you see, as the representative of Austria's Export Credit Agency, the developments in Africa, and what can OeKB offer in the region?
Well, it's already been said, Africa is a huge continent with huge potential. We've been hearing lots of things this morning, what can be done. OeKB is Austria's export credit agency, which means that we have a mandate from the government, meaning the Ministry of Finance, to offer guarantee products and refinancing products through commercial banks, which is a good opportunity to say we're very happy to have a prominent German bank with us on the podium. We are bank neutral as OeKB. We are privately owned by Austrian commercial banks, which are obviously our main partners, but we are very happy to cooperate with whoever bank feels operating with us. I think this is a very important message, especially for the banks sitting in the audience. The second thing is that contrary to commercial banks, we have only one office, which is in Austria, in Vienna, but we do cooperate heavily and intensively with the Chamber of Commerce, especially the commercial councillors. So we have, so to speak, people on the ground who are the commercial councillors who also are in the audience, and we operate very intensively together with them. If you ask me about trends and opportunities in Africa, the first thing that comes to mind, what risk coverage is usually done on sort of risk parameters. You can see our risk appetite for Africa on our homepage. Don't be surprised, it's done like a traffic light system. You will see a lot of red lights there. You will see some yellow lights, and you will see very few green lights, which is not really surprising because we rely on financial analysis, but that tends to be more than meets the eye. What I'm trying to say is don't be frightened. There's usually some story behind. There might be an additional factor. There might be experience on the ground. There might be an owner who has experience. There might be a project that earns foreign currency. So there is plenty of things. What I'm aiming at is, roughly speaking, that storytelling is an issue, and do talk to us.
And your message is also that they should approach you, even if it's red, just talking about things and trying to find a solution, maybe?
Well, even if it's, I mean, one can always talk to me. This is a very normal thing.
Okay, great.
That's
his invitation right now.
Nature.
Okay.
But if there is a red light, it's a red light. I don't know how you are driving motor cars. I am a rather strict person. One may talk, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the answer will be anything else but a red light.
Okay, okay.
But again, there is one more thing. It's a dynamic continent. Things are moving rapidly in both directions. So, I mean, talking is always a good idea. And but don't expect only positive answers. I'm a strange person.
And everything is always in movement. So let's see.
Yeah, well, okay. This is more for my commercial banking friends. Okay. Now. We have, I mean, if you say movement, we have to rely on know your customers. We have to rely on all the regulatory framework, which is heavy. We have to fulfill OECD rules, and we have to fulfill commercial banking rules. So there is quite a good number of things that need to be done. So it can be rather complicated.
Thank you, Carl. This was the banking side, right? Now we change the perspective and want to hear from a company being active in the region. So Markus, you have together with your company FIMA Industries already quite an impressive track record in Austria, in Africa. So just for getting started, why Africa?
Why Africa? That's a good one. So
You're welcome.
I think with our business, first of all, a short introduction of FIMA Industries. More or less, FIMA Industries is an Austrian-based leading European exporter for MPT plants and equipment. MPT means mechanical biological treatment plants. So let's call it waste treatment plants. We have done in the past more than deals or projects for over 60 million euros in the continent of Africa, and always backed with export credit agencies financing. So that's why thanks having me here to talk also with the bank and the ECAs, where we have experience also with.
Great.
And why Africa? It is, we engage in Africa not only because of the market growth and the massive population growth, which leads into a lot of business possibilities, but in our business we see also the social and environmental impact. Meaning, once we are building up a recycling plant, it creates jobs, it creates perspectives for people. So that's the social impact, but also there is a huge environmental impact. So once we are treating the waste via our recycling plants, we save enormous tons of CO2. One plant is always saving more than some hundred of tons of per CO2 per year by treating the waste. And also don't forget, when you treat the waste in a proper way, it don't go into the groundwater, so outdoor water. So it has a social impact and an environmental impact, and that's the reason why we are, as businessmen, also in Africa, because we can have an impact as well.
Wow. And if I'm right, Markus, you also have to celebrate the biggest project ever signed, I think in Nigeria?
Yes, in Africa's most vibrant city, Lagos. Everybody who knows Lagos knows how vibrant
you have to be diplomatic because there are representatives of many more countries.
Yes,
so
sorry for that.
Okay,
But
so
it's
Lagos
a booming
is
city.
the most vibrant one.
Yeah, for me, yes, and it's a booming city, and it's the biggest city in Africa, and the urbanization and the massive population growth means a lot of challenges in Lagos and in a lot of mega cities in Africa. But 3 years ago, we started the discussions with the people from Lagos and our the biggest African waste recycling company, which is based in Ghana. And more or less what we did is one of the biggest European green tech deals on the continent, because we are going to deliver 5 modern waste treatment plants for the city of Lagos.
Wow.
And you have to imagine Lagos is producing 14,000 tons of waste per year. Massive. Per day, sorry.
14,000 tons.
40,000 tons.
That's impressive.
And so something has to be done. And as we are having world's biggest references together with our customer and our technology partner Comtech on the continent, we have used it as a lighthouse effect, and we know how to bring in a game changer project. And now it's time to do something, and thanks to the financing possibilities through the export credit agencies from Austria, but also from Germany, and the banks who are ready to give the loans, we are able to do that project, delivering 5 MPT plants, but also the logistical equipment, because what I've forgotten to tell you, as FIMA Industries, we are also operating FIMA Africa, which is an international trading firm holding exclusive sales rights, or call it general import rights, in the recycling industry.
Wow, okay.
So we are holding, for example, from the biggest waste producer, waste collecting truck producer from Europe, from company Faun, the exclusive right.
Cool. So there you're really the expert in this field. But how about, because you just started to talk about the financing part, So how did you proceed when you did these projects? Who supported you?
Okay.
Which organizations?
It's really not easy to do financing. So but
Do you have any hints?
there are a lot of it. But
Good.
what I always say, and what we have also confirmed together in our pre-discussion, the key for African business in Africa is the financing.
Okay.
So we have never done a business instead of some spare part business or service business without financing. So, and we have done several financings with the Austrian Kontrollbank, with the German ECI, Euler Hermes, even with Seed Bank Slovenia. But the export credit agency is the one thing. The other thing is also how to get the loan bank that grants you a loan, that gives the customer a loan for it. And that's why also, thanks, we have a German representative here, because the Germans are really fast movers in the banking business.
So, in your eyes, the message is somehow it's not only selling the product, it's the package somehow with the financing. So it's being more attractive than. Okay.
No, this is, we as FIMA Industries, we are, let's call it packager. We really, from the financing until up to the after sales, we try to package everything. So starting from the financing, because without financing, you cannot talk really about the project. So, and this takes, of course, time and needs a long brief.
So thank you, Markus. So you already mentioned your financing approach. So Kathrin and Colle, you're the experts actually. So what options do you see for Austrian exporters?
Yeah, you say I'm representing a German bank, but I also want to make a bit of marketing for my colleagues in Vienna, because we have an office in Vienna. We feel like home also in Vienna, not only in Africa. I think there are a lot of options to finance trade into Africa, and not every single project qualifies for long-term finance. Markus was just talking about. I think there's much more. There is, let's say, cash settlements, shorter-term trade finance options. We provide FX solutions. So I think there's much more to it. But in this panel, I think we're concentrating more than on the long-term financing. And here, I think, again, there are plenty of opportunities. I think we talked about larger scale public infrastructure projects. Yes, there we are dealing with local governments and usually getting, let's say, a guarantee of the relevant Ministry of Finance of a country. But that is more for the larger scale projects, which are in public interest. But then there are also private projects. And then it gets a bit more complex because, we do not know every single African company, and they do not know what is needed in international financing. So there needs to be a bit of facilitation. A facilitator can be a local bank who knows the company, and we know the bank. So I think there it could be a solution to be worked out. But another solution can also be having someone like a company like FIMA, who is already on the ground and can collect information which we as a bank in Germany might not get hold of. Or we also work with local project developers, African companies who already, let's say, established an infrastructure in-house also acts as a facilitator in translating the needs from an African point of view, but also being able to translate the needs of an international bank. And I think this is all what we just talked about this morning. It's collaboration, it's networking, it's really establishing contacts. And what we also did over the last, I need to say 3 years, because we wanted to start earlier, but then COVID kicked in. We're doing training, so ECA finance trainings on the ground. We have done a seminar in Kenya last year and in Nigeria. We invited government officials, we invited representatives of local banks, and tried to teach in the idea of ECA finance to facilitate trade. But this takes time, but we get a lot of interest, and nothing works right from the beginning, so we need to be persistent, but we're seeing a lot of success in it.
Thank you.
Well, you mentioned the key word. It's persistence and being in the market. I would like to mention another key word from our perspective. The aim of what we are doing is trying to enable business. I mean, it's not really it's not the big issue whether we give the guarantee or it's a German guarantee or God knows where. It's a question of content rules, which is a very complicated issue, which will take a seminar, will take a few days. But in the end of the day, we want you to enable to make business. And in order to do so, we can offer a few instruments. And if you allow me, I would like to spend a few minutes talking about those instruments. The ones where the guarantees we have been talking about, which is an ECA guarantee, is not it's a little bit complex, but it's not very difficult. So what Kathrin said, I mean, education is part of the thing. Unfortunately, we are not as fast as African fintechs, but given the framework we are working in, this is unfortunately a completely different situation. This is where we can start. Then we have, of course, instruments that have a little bit of a development angle, which I would like to mention simply because it's part of the story. We do have a program that is called Soft Loan, which is, well, the softening part is that we can have a longer tenor and, well, a lower interest rate, but it's only for projects that are commercially not viable. Again, a little bit of a difficult situation, but which is a typical project that is commercially not viable is a public infrastructure like a hospital or any health institution. To give one example, there's more than that. In addition to that, for smaller things, we do have, as an OeKB group, a daughter bank, which is called Austrian Development Bank. They have a couple of instruments for development financing, including an instrument especially for smaller Austrian companies that are going to invest in Africa. Keyword is investment. If investment is an issue, we can support investment as well, always together with commercial banks, with guarantee instruments and other instruments, simply because FDI is a big issue. Local production is an issue. As I said, it's a huge dynamic in the market. Many things could be happening. And last but not least, Austria also has a development agency called ADA, Austrian Development Agency. And to sum it up, there is a good number of instruments which is called development partnerships for smaller companies, mainly SMEs. And since we mentioned SMEs, there is one more issue that I, from my personal experience, would like to bring in. Austria has a lot of technological solutions, but we do not have huge exporting companies, with the exception of a few packages. So we started thinking about, together with our ministry, what we could do, and we came up with something that we have been doing for a very long time, but we made it a structured product now, which is called Shopping Line, which means that we bundle products, simply that we can bring SMEs into these things. And the target would be a bank. We could bundle it at the other end, at the bank's side, or the other option would be, typically would be an EPC, which is a general contractor that could buy Austrian products from smaller companies.
Meaning general contractor by a big building company doing infrastructure works in Africa.
Whoever has been around last year we had a general contractor on the podium explaining to us what he does in Africa. That was one of the examples where we did that. The very same contractor we've been talking about was a Portuguese one, but contractors could be in Portugal, could be in Spain, could be in Turkey, could be in any other country. That would be a way to bring smaller companies in markets where they are not really able to enter on their own.
Thank you, Kathrin and Carl, for elaborating on the various financing alternatives. Before moving to the Q&A part, I ask for a main message from each of you. Markus, so hearing all this, what's your key message for Austrian companies interested in exporting to African markets?
The key message, I think, I always say, get the feet on the ground.
Okay.
Be there, feel the market, feel the customers. Take your time, because you need a long brief, you need endurance, you call it, and you need to be flexible, you need to be absolutely solution orientated, not only in your product, also in the financing cases and also in flight cases. So you have to be a flexible person and a flexible company.
So hearing all this, it means you cannot do it from your office you are Styrians, a proud Styrian.
Yes,
so,
I'm a
so
proud
you
Styrian.
cannot do it from your office in Syria. You have to really be
Exactly.
there.
Me,
Have the
I
feet
am
on the
going at least once a month to Africa
Okay.
to get the feet on the ground. We have partners over there in West Africa, and I think that this is absolutely necessary to. And of course, it's like on the banking sector, it's also a trust issue. It's partnership. It takes time to feel each other.
And talking about partners, and doing a bit of self-promotion now. So do you have any partners
Yes, of
in
course.
Africa?
No, of
but,
course.
You know, I'm
Once
just
we-
asking.
Yes, that's a good one because I have forgotten it to mention it because, for example, if we go use instruments like we have here at Advantage Austria, when we are going, for example, when we were going to Lagos, I was touching base with Guido. Now I go into contact with Barbara and the team. When we are going to Eastern Africa, we do the same. We get a great support. If we have some funny requests, we try to check these requests. But if it is only for our comfort, we are asking, how is the safety regulation at the moment? Are we safe? Which hotels you can recommend? So it's also a bit of for the comfort zone they support us, but especially on commercial issues where they check it if this is serious or not, because a lot of fraud is also going on. And that's why we are really thankful to have this possibility and this support because this brings a lot of problems away.
Great, great, great to hear. Thank you so much. Kathrin, what are your recommendations?
I think where we as a bank cannot help is make your business successful in Africa, meaning, let's say, what Markus was saying, you as a company, yes, you need to have the passion and to invest in Africa in terms of you need to go there, need to travel, you need to connect. What we can offer as a bank is we have the financing network, and just making it a bit more concrete, we have financed it was in the press, therefore I can talk about a textile project in Benin. And at the end, we supported 7 European exporters who had interest in that project. And on the standalone basis, each and everyone just supplying one machinery, that would have been very difficult to finance. But we could bundle the 7 because on the other hand, we had good contacts to the project developer. And we said, yeah, if we combine, if we make one project, if we don't have 7 projects, but if we create one project, then it is feasible in terms of, let's say, finding a suitable financing solution. And finally, the 7 added up to more than 200 million of investment volume. So there was one bigger one and the other smaller ones. So I think it's also a matter of creativity. And this is what we can offer as a bank. Please approach us. There might not always be the one fits all solution. And sometimes, yes, I need to agree, there might also be not a solution. But I think there are many ways to success. And another story where we did more or less the same was in Côte d'Ivoire, where we had again a project in the food sector. Again, 3 exporters who were seeking for financing, but on a standalone basis. Again, it was too small. They didn't know how to approach. Again, we were looking for a packager this time. It was not a project developer. It was a German packager who could again bundle. Unfortunately, the African corporate who invested, they were not, let's say, in a shape which is digestible for an international bank. So we put a local bank, a regional bank in between. They were willing to invest, so we were funding the local bank, and they were on lending our money to the local company. And so we found a solution. We made it happen for 3 exporters to do a great project that was not above 200, it was just around 50 million, so there were also smaller scale projects feasible. So as I said, there are many solutions. Just talk to us, talk to your bank.
Great.
That is what I can pass on as a message.
Call to action.
Call to action.
Carl.
Well, I think
Mr. Export Financing.
a good number of keywords have been said already. Networking is one big issue. Bundling is definitely a big issue. And coming back to networking, I'm not talking about financing only. I think you should include whoever is your contacts on the ground, use commercial counselors, use other sources. And the other keyword is enabling. I mean, enabling means working together, trying to find solutions, which can be very hard. Doing intelligence on the ground can be difficult. You mentioned it, and not everybody you meet is probably the perfect partner that comes around. So you need to do a lot of footwork and groundwork. Use partners, use experienced partners. The projects you mentioned are actually very good examples that together you can maybe achieve things that on a standalone basis are not possible. And last but not least, there tends to be more than meets the eye. What I'm trying to bring across is, one, to be able to enable things, you need to tell a story. I mean, that is something that has been said again and again this morning. There is usually a story that is bigger than probably the shipment you're trying to sell to your customer. If you tell your banks, your commercial counselors, your business environment, your partners, and ourselves these stories, you may be able to reach something. And the last thing, which is probably a little bit strange when it comes to what I said before, when I said we cannot, our answer will once in a while be no, which is, I guess, very normal. There is so-called best addresses in each and every country. They are not always easy to find, but there is always very good business partners with very sound financials and very sound business strategies. It's not easy to find them, but there's a good partner in basically every country.
Great. Thank you, Carl. Thank you to the 3 of you. Now we are moving over to our Q&A part. Beforehand, some comments. There will be a colleague of mine then handing you the microphone. Please, when asking, state your name, your organization or company. And one more thing, please, no monologues, brief questions. Thank you. Are there any questions so far?
Well, my question is on SMEs. Looking at the African continent, we have over 90% of our companies are SMEs. And here in Austria, there are a lot of SMEs. Financing is always an issue. Are you directly financing Austrian SMEs beyond those packaging and also the African companies?
Who wants to respond?
All right. You want me to start? Well, two SMEs on both ends is going to be a trouble. Let's face it. I mean, it's sort of the icing on the cake. It's what we all want, but it hardly ever works out. So I think if it's only SMEs involved, we're going to run into trouble simply because the instruments are not there. That's the one thing. And the other thing is the SMEs can't work with those instruments. Brings me back to what Kathrin said and what I was trying to bring across. We need to bundle it one way or the other. Then it might be working. And in addition to that, there is other instruments than the long-term ones. I mean, there is letters of credit, there is trade financing instruments, and I think you know more about that. That could be a solution for the issue. But the dream of 2 SMEs on both sides is a difficult one. Maybe Markus doesn't agree, but I mean, that's at least my experience.
I tend to agree. I think one needs to be realistic. If you have an SME, let's say there are already SMEs in Africa who gained experience over time and who have people on board who have, I don't know, by international education or for whatever reason having worked in Europe and at best in a bank, knows what an international bank like ours and many of our friendly competitors as well need. And let's say our needs, there are multiple needs of an international bank to make financing available. And this is why I'm saying we are trying to do teaching on the ground to help understanding what is needed to make international financing possible. And perhaps the SMEs, it still needs to be time to get them educated in a sense, and not saying that they have no good education, but knowing exactly what we as a bank need. On the other hand, that might also be too much of what we need in order that a local SME can cope with it. And therefore I say it must not always be the long-term ECA structured financing the best solution, because it takes time, it also costs money for all the papers who need to be in place, and therefore I think perhaps a letter of credit might be a better and more quicker solution. But I think we're getting there. By education, by training, by marketing our products, by getting more people interested in let's say, in what is needed, we're getting there, but nowadays I'd rather say it's still difficult for the broad range of SMEs to get long-term financing. But we have 2 or 3 of them already in our books, and once we have, let's say, established this cooperation, for the one, and this is in Tanzania, we're doing now the 9th project. And we started also very small, and now it's the 9th project, but it takes time.
Thank you, Kathrin. Is there any more question? Yeah, please.
Thank you. My name is Ntakwana Ngatane. I am from Lesotho, now based in Vienna. I run an events management. I was a journalist for many years, but now I run an events management company. Lesotho has been so successful with textiles manufacturing because of programs like AGOA and the IPA with the EU. But unfortunately, that success means that it has to now grapple with waste from the textile industry, chemical waste, but also fabric waste. For an organization like FIMA, do you accept people who come to you and say, here is a possibility for you to operate in a market in a small country like Lesotho?
To operate something locally, that's a future vision for us to do something, but for the moment now. But as a businessman, I really always I want to highlight like the social project. I don't only want to build up some plants, I also want to make a real business case in Africa. So that's for me a personal target. So once it comes up, we will do something, I think.
Thank you. So one final question. Is there any more question? I see.
Yes, so my question goes to Bernhard and Markus. You were talking about partnerships. My name is Rejoice Dosu-Herman with Cadre EU. I'm specialized in international recruitment, also local. Talking about partnerships, if a company wanted to partner with you regarding recruitment, because you are like doing a big project in Nigeria, I'm also originally from there. I'm also Austrian by nationality, meaning I have the unique advantage of having lived there and lived here. Do you partner with such companies?
Thank you very much for your question. It's an interesting question, and I would really appreciate if because it's not so about the financing part, because it's about partnership, because there I can somehow tell you that our honorable panelists have also advised me that they will be outside in the hall then to further elaborate with you if you have any questions to them, you want to talk to them. So I just take this as a chance now to do the closing remarks. So in a nutshell, I would say thank you. There are certainly huge opportunities on the African continent, and concerning the financing part, if you have the right partners, You can also find an individual solution for you from this financing and risk covering point of view. And there I give you once more the invitation, if you want to discuss your issues with the 3 experts, then please take this chance, take this opportunity. They will be available outside to talk to you. So once again, thanks a lot to our 3 panelists, and thanks to you all, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you, bye-bye.